By the time Brenda Whitman was escorted out of the community hearing room, she was still performing chin up, voice sharp, one hand gripping her tablet like it was a badge that could still save her. On the projector behind her, the white Tesla she used to pin my driveway was paused mid-frame, angled across my gate like a barricade timestamp blazing in the corner, and the county compliance officer was reading out procedural violations from the Homeowners Association records in a tone so calm it made everything sound permanent. Nobody applauded. Nobody smiled. Nobody turned to me like I was some kind of winner. They just watched the only story she'd controlled for weeks come apart under fluorescent light, and the silence in that room felt heavier than shouting ever could. If you've never had one person with a board title decide your front gate is their pressure point. This may sound like neighborhood drama, but when your home becomes someone else's lever, your job, your money, your reputation, your sleep, all of it gets attached to that lever. I'm Ethan Cole, 38, born in Colorado. Run a small excavation and grading company, built one contract at a time. My work isn't glamorous, but it's honest utility, trenching, drainage correction, prep grading access roads, concrete subgrade, the kind of jobs where mistakes get expensive fast and timelines matter more than anybody's feelings. I wake up before dawn because crews inspections and site windows don't care if you had a bad night. My routine used to be predictable in a way I took for granted boots by the mudroom coffee that could strip paint, hook trailer quick, check on straps, and out through my driveway gate before the neighborhood woke up. When I bought in Maple Ridge Estates, that predictability was the whole point. Quiet streets, decent lot size, good highway access neighbors, mostly normal. 3 years went by with no real conflict. I paid dues, attended the occasional meeting, kept my property in shape, stayed friendly, stayed busy. I wasn't trying to be popular, I was trying to be left alone. Then board elections rolled around and Brenda Whitman took over as president of the HOA. If you've met this type, you know the packaging, polished smile, precise hair, expensive blazer, a corporate vocabulary for everything. In her first open meeting, she used phrases like community enhancement roadmap, cohesive visual identity, and proactive standards enforcement. People nodded because she sounded organized. She sounded like leadership. But there's a version of organized that's just control dressed in a nice binder, and I recognized it when she singled me out after the meeting with that sweet, measured voice. Ethan, your business is admirable truly, but we're trying to maintain a certain residential feel. We may need to discuss your vehicle presence. Vehicle presence. That was her phrase for my livelihood. I said, my truck and trailer are on my property, compliant with county and subdivision rules. She smiled, didn't blink, and said, we'll review what's best for the neighborhood. What's best for the neighborhood is a phrase people use when they're about to make one person pay for everybody else's comfort. It started small, almost deniable. A friendly reminder zip-tied to my mailbox about parking aesthetics. A printed notice about equipment staging concerns, even though I wasn't staging equipment in common areas. Then a formal warning citing a bylaw subsection that didn't actually apply to my lot type. I responded the way I handle contracts, specific, documented, professional. I asked for the exact section language precedent cases and the board vote authorizing enforcement action. No direct answers, just templates. Then came another notice, harsher language, tighter deadline. Still no hearing date. Still no vote record. I requested minutes again. Silence again. At this point, I understood the strategy: flood me with paperwork. First, force me to burn time and money, defending against vague accusations, make me look non-compliant by sheer volume. If I argued emotionally, I'd become the aggressive contractor she could warn everyone about. If I ignored it, she'd escalate by default and call it process. Then she took it from paperwork to physical obstruction. The first time her Tesla blocked my driveway gate, I assumed bad parking. She was angled just enough across my exit line that with a trailer attached, I couldn't safely clear without risking a scrape or worse. I texted politely, asked her to move. She replied 9 minutes later, on a call. I left late, took the hit, moved on. Second time, same angle. Third time, same part of morning. By the sixth incident, it was obvious she was timing it to my routine. She knew when I opened my garage. She knew when my trailer was hooked. She knew exactly how little space to leave, so it looked almost passable if someone saw a single photo. The trick was precision, not full blockage, just enough to sabotage me while preserving plausible deniability. I tried de-escalation every way I could think of. Text, email to full board, not just her, in-person conversation with zero heat. I stood on her porch one morning, palms open, and said, "Brenda, I have one driveway, one practical road out with the trailer. Please stop parking there." She gave me that glossy customer service smile and said, "If you were more cooperative with Homeowners Association guidance, these interactions might be less frequent." Less frequent. Not accidental, not misunderstanding. Conditional access. That sentence flipped a switch for me. After that, she moved to narrative control. Neighborhood group posts started appearing with clipped phone videos, me trying to back out, me stepping out of my truck, me visibly frustrated. Captions, unsafe maneuvering near families, escalating contractor behavior, pattern of hostility. She never posted the beginning of any interaction, never showed where her car was before my garage opened, never included full context or timestamps. She posted fragments designed to confirm the story she wanted residents to believe, and people believed enough of it to do damage. Clients got cautious. One project manager called and said, "We've heard there may be legal instability at your residence. Should we adjust schedule?" Another quietly reassigned a morning trenching slot to a competitor after I missed a start window. I paid a delay penalty from my own pocket because my crew and subcontractor chain had already mobilized. Reputation in construction is fragile. One rumor about instability and suddenly everyone's just being careful. I called non-emergency and got Deputy Morales. He came out, listened, took statements, and gave the lawful answer, likely, civil matter document, thoroughly avoid escalation. He wasn't dismissive, just constrained. Brenda stood there with folded hands, soft voice, concerned resident face. By evening she filed 2 complaints against me anyway. Nuisance operations and verbal intimidation. Nothing concrete, everything suggestive. That week I started dreading my own mornings. Not fear exactly, fatigue. That heavy mechanical fatigue where you know exactly what kind of problem is waiting for you before your coffee cools. I'd wake up and check camera previews before checking weather. I'd hold keys in my hand and feel my jaw tighten because whether I made it to work on time depended on one person's mood and strategy. Home stopped feeling like recovery space and started feeling like a checkpoint. There was one night I sat in my truck after parking engine off forehead against the steering wheel and did the math. Lost deposits, penalty fees, client hesitations, attorney consultation costs, downtime. No dramatic breakdown, just numbers. Numbers that said this could bleed me for months if I kept reacting instead of proving. So I changed the game from argument to evidence. I called Marcus Hale, licensed surveyor, one of the most detail-locked people I know. He arrived with Platts equipment and no patience for opinions. We re-established my property lines, placed markers, shot reference photos with coordinates, and built a baseline map. Over multiple mornings, we documented her front wheel crossing onto my property envelope. Inches, sure, but inches become facts when captured against surveyed markers and synced time records. Then I built a real documentation system. 2 wide-angle cameras with overlapping coverage mounted high enough to avoid obstruction. Cloud backup plus local mirrored storage. Timestamp overlays locked to network time. Motion event tagging. I created an incident ledger in plain language and rigid format date. Arrival time, car orientation, obstruction, duration, communication attempt, witness notes, business impact, file references. I didn't write Brenda is crazy. I wrote vehicle position reduced exit radius below safe trailer clearance by measured estimate. Boring facts beat dramatic adjectives every time. I retained Dana Ruiz, a civil attorney who speaks in clean lines and hates theatrics. Dana read every notice, every email, every bylaw section, every timeline entry. After 2 hours, she said, "This is patterned access interference paired with selective enforcement and procedural defects." We don't argue with her tone, we challenge her authority chain. Cease and desist went out the next day to Brenda and the Homeowners Association Board. Immediate cessation of access obstruction preservation. Hold on all communications and draft notices related to my address production request for board minutes and vote authorizations for each enforcement action. Sent, certified, and electronic. Tracked receipts. That letter started shaking loose what fear had kept quiet. A board member contacted Dana privately. Several notices had not been approved in open vote. Another admitted he assumed legal review had occurred because Brenda said it had. A neighbor across the street sent porch cam footage showing Brenda arriving before dawn and waiting at my gate before I came outside. Another neighbor shared a clip from a different day showing her repositioning her Tesla twice to reduce my turn angle. A delivery driver sent dash cam footage with plate visibility and timestamp. Different sources, same behavior, same intent pattern. Dana built a matrix incident number visual evidence bylaw citation used by Brenda, required approval, path, actual approval record. The matrix made the whole thing obvious. Enforcement actions issued first, governance justification, missing later, if at all. We filed with county compliance repeated obstruction of lawful ingress/egress, procedurally invalid enforcement under Homeowners Association governance rules, and targeted conduct resulting in measurable economic harm. County accepted emergency review and requested records production from the board. That should have pushed Brenda to retreat. Instead, she escalated. She posted a long statement in the neighborhood group about defending residential character against creeping commercial impact, called me habitually confrontational, and urged residents to attend the hearing in support of standards. It read like a campaign speech disguised as a safety memo. She still thought she could out-narrate evidence. I said nothing online. I worked days, organized nights. Dana and I labeled every clip synced metadata, verified timestamps, cross-referenced client messages, and invoicing effects attached geographic references where needed. We built exhibits that could be understood in seconds by any one board member, officer, neighbor, random person off the street. Exhibit 1 sequence of block positions. Exhibit 2 property line confirmation. Exhibit 3 notice issuance versus authorization gaps. Exhibit 4 impact table delays, penalties, cancellations. Exhibit 5 communication log showing repeated requests for de-escalation. The hearing room was packed. Residents in folding chairs. Board table at front. County compliance officer centered. Clerk to the side. Security near exit. Brenda arrived in white blazer tablet, ready, expression controlled. I arrived in work boots and a binder thick enough to look ridiculous until it opened. She spoke first as expected. Her statement was polished, safety harmony values, ongoing concerning interactions, defensive documentation, resident anxiety. She framed me as a destabilizing contractor resisting community standards. If you heard only her version, I'd sound like a loud, non-compliant guy bullying volunteers. Then Dana stood and asked one question. Please identify the date, motion, and vote count authorizing notices 14 through 20 issued to Mr. Cole. Brenda tried to broaden the topic. Mentioned urgency authority. Mentioned precedent without naming any. Mentioned board consensus. Dana repeated. Date, motion, vote count. No answer. Dana moved exhibits into record. Clip 1. Tesla arrives before garage opens. Clip 2, camera angle shows narrowed turning path with trailer attached. Clip 3 from neighbor cam. Brenda raises phone before any interaction. Clip 4, survey marker visible tire crossing line. Clip 5, audio of me calmly requesting access response delayed. Clip 6, second angle confirming repeated obstruction pattern over days. Then the matrix notices issued without corresponding authorization entries. County compliance officer spoke with no drama and maximum impact. Multiple enforcement actions appeared procedurally defective and currently unenforceable due to missing or inadequate authorization records. Record-keeping practices failed transparency expectations. Repeated intentional residential access obstruction may trigger civil liability pathways and possible referral depending on full findings. The room changed instantly. One board director stated on record, I did not approve at least 3 of these notices. Another added, nor did I vote on emergency enforcement authority. Acting chair requested clarification from Brenda. She interrupted. Warning 1, she continued. Warning 2. She talked over the chair again. Acting chair muted her microphone. Motion introduced temporary suspension of Brenda Whitman's enforcement authority pending independent governance audit and county follow-up. Seconded, passed. Motion 2, immediate freeze and review of all active notices tied to my property and any notices lacking complete authorization trail. Seconded, passed. Motion 3, retention of external counsel and independent records consultant for harassment, exposure, and compliance remediation. Seconded, passed. Brenda stood abruptly, chair legs scraping tile, pointed at me, said, "I manipulated the process," said contractors were weaponizing technicalities, said she was being punished for leadership. Security approached with that calm, final tone professionals use when discretion is over. "Ma'am, step away from the table." She refused once. They repeated the instruction. She grabbed her tablet, still speaking, and they escorted her out the side door while the clerk read the county reference number into the minutes. No cheering, no group hug, no soundtrack. Just documents moving from personal conflict into official record where charisma can't edit the footage. Outside night air hit cold. I sat in my truck and stared at my gate through live camera feed. Empty driveway, clear exit line, no staged obstruction. My phone buzzed with 2 client texts confirming next week starts. I replied yes to both. The next month was cleanup, not victory. County audit dug deeper. Missing vote logs, inconsistent citation standards, draft notices prepared before deliberation, informal complaint emails treated as formal enforcement triggers. Interim board leadership paused discretionary actions and rebuilt process controls. They implemented documented vote trails, clearer notice templates, and resident hearing protocols with timestamps and disclosure requirements. I didn't ask for anyone to like me. I asked for due process and equal application. A few neighbors reached out quietly. One said she had believed Brenda's clips because they looked convincing and she never saw the full context. Another said she stayed silent because she feared becoming the next target. One older neighbor said, "I figured you'd handle it." I told him what I wish more people understood: most people handle it by bleeding privately until they can't. There were still costs, real ones. I lost a client I never got back, paid legal fees I hadn't budgeted, spent dozens of nights building exhibits instead of sleeping. Burned trust in some corners that won't recover because people remember accusations longer than corrections. That part doesn't make it into neat endings, but it matters. What I got back wasn't a perfect reset. I got function. I got access. I got my mornings back. I got a process that now had to show its math. And I learned something useful enough to pass on. Most power abuse in neighborhoods doesn't arrive looking like a villain. It arrives as compliance. It uses kind words, selective clips, and paperwork volume to create the appearance of legitimacy. It counts on fatigue. It counts on you reacting on camera. It counts on other people staying neutral because neutrality feels safe when consequences are distributed unevenly. What breaks that pattern isn't rage. It's structure. You document the setup, not just the argument. You preserve full sequences, not highlights. You separate facts from commentary. You tie each action to tangible impact. You force every claim into a room where records are reviewed line by line. People ask if I'd do anything differently. Yeah, I'd start documenting on day 1, not day 10. I'd involve counsel earlier. I'd assume that if someone is curating clips, they're curating a narrative. And I'd never again trust that friendly reminders are harmless when they target one address and skip the process. The first morning after the suspension, I hit my garage remote, watched the gate rise, and saw nothing in front of it except clean pavement and pale sky. I rolled out trailer steady, no hesitation, no performance waiting behind tinted glass. I got to site on time. Crew was already unloading. We argued about trench depth, laughed about bad coffee, and did the work. Normal. That was the whole fight. Not dominance, not revenge, just the right to live and work without someone manufacturing friction at my own front gate. Weeks later, I ran into Brenda once at a grocery parking lot. No scene, no speech. She looked past me like I didn't exist. That was fine. I wasn't interested in closure theater. I was interested in not being controlled by someone else's interpretation of community. Maple Ridge kept moving. Kids rode bikes. Trash trucks came on Tuesdays. New board notices were dull again, and dull is underrated. My business stabilized. Some clients returned, some didn't. Life stayed imperfect, but it was mine again. If there's one thing this taught me, it's this. When someone in power turns your home into leverage, don't chase their narrative. Build your own record so tight it survives without your voice. Bullies can spin stories. They can't cross-examine timestamps.